Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a review of Xtrfy's M42 Wireless, and just to go over the fundamentals of the mouse, it does have a interchangeable top shell design where if you want a little bit more of a higher hump in the back of the mouse, if you want more of that underhand feel, you can definitely get that with the second shell included in the box. You can see that the mouse has a full hole design, so you will have holes on the left side where you are gripping the mouse with your thumb, as well as the right side if you clench the right side with your ring or pinky finger. There are holes as well on left click and right click and the bottom side of the mouse as well. As far as the switches, it is using KEL 8.0s, and overall the build quality on this copy compared to my wired version that I reviewed early on does not have any glaring build quality issues, but let's get into it. Overall build quality here is actually quite good. I have no flex pushing the sides as hard as I can or the top down. Mouse 4 and Mouse 5, I have just a bit of pre-travel on the plastic, not really anything significant whatsoever. No post-travel, so the side switches and the implementation here feel very good. Overall, Mouse 1 and Mouse 2 feel very crisp, very tactile, good implementation of the KEL 8.0s. The side flex is very minimal. Pre and post-travel on Mouse 1 and Mouse 2, I have a bit of pre-travel and a little bit of post-travel, but overall the switches do feel very good and very spammable. Mouse 3 feels great, and the spammability of Mouse 3 feels great as well. Definitely three things that you could definitely spam with ease. And just to go over the modular shell design, if the two screws on the bottom left and bottom right of the mouse are not tight, you can just remove the bottom screw on the bottom middle of the mouse, and the shell just pops off by clicking it off on the bottom of the mouse. This shell that I have on right now is the higher hump version of the mouse. I personally don't prefer the dimensions of this shell. I think that for how long and narrow the mouse is, it makes it feel a little bit awkward, almost like it is pushing my hand away from where I typically would rest my fingers when gripping the mouse. I think it's just too long for how extended that hump is. It makes it feel a little bit awkward, so I do prefer the flatter shell on this particular copy of the mouse. It's definitely something that feels more aggressive and feels better in game for me. Really, on paper, the Xtrfy M42 has a lot that seems as though it could fit into anybody's top 5 wireless mice, and certainly this could be somebody's main wireless mouse. It has enough features to make it a solid performer in game, and certainly shape is king. Shape is going to drive whether this really feels good to you or really doesn't. For me, the top shell that was a little bit flatter, again, I played very well with it in game. I didn't really have any issues with my tracking, my flick shots. Things felt good, and the KEL 8.0s felt good to me in game as well. But my initial impressions when I took this mouse out of the box was that it felt very OEM, and as I used it in game, I felt the same way. I didn't feel like, after using this for hours and hours and hours, that it felt any better to me. It feels like something that would come from Xenix, something that would come from Ponage. It doesn't feel like a company's flagship mouse. The texture feels cheap, the plastic feels cheap, and certainly the holes on the side are very awkward feeling in game. It doesn't feel like generally an experience that is fun. And there's too many wireless mice on the market right now that feel superb without holes or have holeless sides, like Pulsar just upgraded their V2 line of the Xlite without those ridges on the side, and it just feels better. It doesn't feel as cheap as it does with those holes on the side. And overall, it's just something to me that isn't a fun feeling experience in the Xtrfy M42. The weight feels a little bit awkward to me. At 69 grams, it doesn't feel bad, but it doesn't feel great. Even using the weight distribution system and lining things up how I felt best, it just doesn't feel good to me. You can really feel where that battery rests as you are whipping this thing around in your hand. So it feels good, it just doesn't feel great, and I don't think that I would personally put this in my personal top 5 for a wireless mouse, and it's certainly not something that I am going to main, not something that I am going to use for any additional amount of time after this review. But again, if this is something that is in your shape preference, if you like a fairly long mouse that is narrow, that has that hump kind of towards the back, rounding up to the middle of the mouse, it could definitely feel good for you, and you could definitely perform very well on this mouse. So don't keep it out of your peripheral vision as a possible mouse that could be your top wireless mouse. I'm just sharing my experiences and how I felt with the mouse, and I just don't feel all that excited while using the mouse. So guys, that is it for this review of the Xtrfy M42 Wireless. Again, a pretty unique mouse with that interchangeable shell design in the back of the mouse. It is fairly narrow with that extended back hump with the second shell, a little bit flatter with the shell that I preferred. And the weight distribution system, again, I feel it to be a little bit gimmicky. Some of you might like it. Some of you might prefer it more forward, more back. I personally like it to be as equally weight distributed as possible, and I like that to be the case from the manufacturer themselves. I do think that the shell, again, feels overall very OEM. The texture, the holes on the side, it's just not a very great feeling to me. So it's not something that I personally would main. The shape was somewhat nice. The mouse is a little bit too narrow for my hands and my grip size, my preference, but I do think that a lot of people would find a lot of comfort with the mouse given how long it is, with the different variations of that back hump that rounds out to the middle of the mouse. I do think that it fills a rather unique position in the market because there's not really a whole lot of things that have those back humps that round out towards the middle. And again, certainly something that could be somebody's main shape and somebody's main mouse, just not something that I personally preferred. I hope that helped, guys. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Peace.